Well, good morning and welcome to Tuesdays with the Pilgrim. Today we continue reading The Shepherd of the Hills by Harold Bell Wright, Chapter 1. It was corn planting time when the stranger followed the old trail into Mutton Hollow neighborhood. All day a fine rain had fallen steadily, and the mist hung heavy over the valley. The lower hills were wrapped as in a winding sheet, dank and cold. The trees were dripping with moisture. The stranger looked tired and wet. By his dress, the man was from the world beyond the ridges, and his carefully tailored clothing looked strangely out of place in the mountain wilderness. His form stooped a little in the shoulders, perhaps with weariness, but he carried himself with an unconscious air of one long used to a position of conspicuous power and influence. And, while his well-kept hair and beard were strongly touched with white, the brown, clear-lighted eyes that looked from under their shaggy brows told of an intelligence unclouded by the shadows of many years. It was a face marked deeply by pride of birth, of intellect, of culture, the face of a scholar and a poet. But it was more. It was the countenance of one fairly staggering under the burden of disappointment and grief. As the stranger walked, he looked searchingly into the mists on every hand, and paused frequently as if questioning the proper course. Suddenly he stepped quickly forward. His ear had caught the sharp ring of a horse's shoe on a flint rock, somewhere in the mists on the mountainside above. It was Jed Holland coming down the trail with a week's supply of cornmeal in a sack across his horse's back. As the figure of the traveler emerged from the mist, the native checked his horse and greeted the newcomer with the customary salutation of the backwoods. "Howdy!" The man returned Jed's greeting cordially, and resting his satchel on a rock beside the narrow path, added, "I'm very glad to meet you. I fear that I am lost." The voice was marvelously pure, deep, and musical, and, like the brown eyes, betrayed the real strength of the man, denied his gray hair and bent form. The tones were as different from the high-keyed, slurring speech of the backwoods as the gentleman himself was unlike any man Jed had ever met. The boy looked at the speaker in wide-eyed wonder. He had a queer feeling that he was in the presence of a superior being. Throwing one thin leg over the old mare's neck and waving a long arm up the hill to the left, Jed drawled, "That there's Dewey Bald. Down yonder's Mutton Holler." Then turning a little to the right and pointing into the mist with the other hand, he continued, "Compton Ridge over there. Where's you trying to get to, mister?" "Where am I trying to get to?" As the man repeated Jed's question, he drew his hand wearily across his brow. It doesn't matter much, boy. I suppose I must find some place where I can stay the night. Do you live near here?" "No," Jed answered. "Hit's right smart piece to where I live. This here's a grindin' day, and I've been to the mill over on Fall Creek. The Matthews mill it is. It'll be plumb dark by the time I get home. I 'lowed you was a stranger in these parts as soon as I ketched eyes on you. What might your name be, mister?" The other looked back over the way he'd come, seemed not to hear Jed's question, and the native continued, "Mine's Holland. Pap and Ma, they come from Tennessee. Pap, he's down in the back now, and ain't right pert, but he'll be around in a little, I reckon. Preachin' Bill, he allows hit's good for a fella to be down in the back once in a while. Says if it weren't for that, we'd get to standin' dern proud and straight and just go plumb over backwards." A bitter smile crossed the face of the older man. He evidently applied the native's philosophy in a way unguessed by Jed. Very true indeed," he mused. He then turned to Jed and asked, "Is there a house near here?" "Jim Lane lives up the trail about half a quarter. Ever hear of old Jim?" "No, I can't say that I ever been in these mountains before." "I allowed how maybe you'd heard of old Jim or Sammy. There's them that allows Jim known a heap more about old man Dewey's cave than he lets on, his place being so high. Reckon you know about old Colonel Dewey. Him that bald up there's named for. Maybe you come to look for that big mine they say's in that cave. I'll help you hunt for it if you want me to, mister. No, said the other. I'm not looking for mines of lead or zinc. There is greater wealth in these hills and forests, young man. Law, you don't say. Jim Wilson always 'lowed there must be gold in these there mountains, 'cause they're so dad-burn rough. Let me help you, mister. I'd like mighty well to get some clothes like them's. I do not speak of gold, my boy, the stranger answered kindly, but I must not keep you longer, or darkness will overtake us. Do you think this Mr. Lane would entertain me? Jed pushed a hand up under his tattered old hat and scratched a while before he answered, Don't know about the entertainin', mister, but most everyone around here'd take ye in. He turned to look thoughtfully up the trail. I don't guess Jim's home, though, 'cause I seen Sammy a-fixin' to go over to the Mathiers when I come past. You know the Mathiers, I reckon. There was a hint of impatience now in the deep voice. No, I told you that I have never been in these mountains before. Will Mr. Matthews keep me, do you think? Jed, who was still looking up the trail, suddenly leaned forward and pointed into the timber to the left of the path, and said in an exciting whisper, Look at that, mister! Yonder there by that big rock! The stranger, looking, thought he saw a form, weird and ghost-like in the mist, flitting from tree to tree. But even as he looked, it vanished among the hundreds of fantastic shapes in the grey forest. What is it? He asked. The native shook his head. Durned if I know, mister. You can't tell. There's mighty strange things stirring in these here mountains and in the holler down yonder. Say, mister, did you ever see a haunt? The gentleman did not understand. A haunt, a ghost, some calls 'em, explained Jed. But Wilson, he sure seed old Mats. The other interrupted. Really, young man, I must go. It's already late, and you know I have yet to find a place to stay for the night. Law, that's right, mister, replied Jed. Ain't no call o' worry. Stays anywhere. Where do you live when ye go to home? Again, Jed's question was ignored. You think, then, that Mr. Matthews will keep me? Law, yes. They'll take anybody in. I know they're home, 'cause they're a-fixin' to leave the mill when I left about an hour ago. Was the river up much when you come crossed? The native spoke. He was still peering uneasily into the woods. I did not cross the river. How far is it to the Matthews place, and how do I go? Just yer foller this old trail. It'll take you right there. Good road all the way. 'Bout 3 mile, I'd say. Did you come from Springfield or St. Louis, maybe? The man lifted his satchel from the rock as he answered, No, I do not live in either Springfield or St. Louis. Thank you very much for your assistance. I will go now, for I must hurry or night will overtake me, and I shall not be able to find the path. Oh, it's a heap lighter when you get on up the hill above the frog, said Jed, lowering his leg from the horse's neck and settling the meal sack preparatory to leaving. But I'd a heap rather hit was you than me going up on Dewey tonight. He was still looking up the trail. Reckon you must be from Kansas City or Chicago. I heard tell they're mighty big towns. The stranger's only answer was a curt goodbye, as his form vanished in the mist. Jed turned and dug his heels vigorously into the old mare's flanks, as he said softly, Well, I'll be darned. Must be from New York, then. Slowly the old man toiled up the mountain, up from the mists of the lower ground to the ridge above. And as he climbed, unseen by him, a shadowy form flitted from tree to tree in the dim, dripping forest. As the stranger came in sight of the Lane cabin, a young woman on a brown pony rode out of the gate and up the trail before him. And when the man reached the open ground on the mountain above and rounded the shoulder of the hill, he saw the pony far ahead, loping easily along the path. A moment he watched, and the horse and rider passed from sight. The clouds were drifting far away. The western sky was clear with the sun still above the hills. In an old tree that leaned out far over the valley, a crow shook the wet from his plumage and dried himself in the warm light, while far below the mists rolled, and on the surface of that grey sea the traveller saw a company of buzzards wheeling and circling above some dead thing hidden in its depth. Wearily the man followed the old trail toward the Matthews place, and always, as he went, in the edge of the gloomy forest, flitted that shadowy figure. And that's the end of Chapter 1. We'll continue next week with Chapter 2, Sammy Lane. Until then, take care, stay safe, and God bless.